Welcome back to another episode of Anyone Can Paint.
We're going to pick up where we left off last week. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start putting some highlights in the grasses and stuff. We're going to go in this whole section, work our way up and around. We'll set the tree down. We'll go up underneath our cabin, kind of set that down, go right back to where it cuts back in from that tree. With that, we're going to use our large fan brush. And this is going to be, the color we're going to use is going to be some yellow with just a small amount of green. Now remember that, when you put a dark color with a light color, it eats up that light color really quick. So don't put too much in when you get started. And we're going to start right back here with these trees, and we just kind of go in and you just want to bend the bristles a little bit so you get nice little tops of some weeds. And as we're doing this, you're going to work your way down towards the water. You want to go up underneath all your rocks to kind of settle those down. And you definitely want to make sure, as everything that we highlight, is that you allow some of the dark to show through. Because on things that are like on the ground, if you're doing snow or grasses like we're doing here, that dark will help to give you that illusion of some depth within that. So that helps with depth. As we put highlights on our trees, which we'll do in a little bit, you'll see that that helps with depth also. But on the ground, it really helps with that distance thing. Kind of keeping that off the rocks for now. Just kind of skip around, again, allowing some of your dark to show through in there. And you can see I'll do this really slow. Hope you can see it. You just want to go up and just bend your bristles a little bit. Now you got to kind of watch it with the fan brush, especially the larger one, because if you hit it too hard, I'll show you here, you end up with a smile, and that may not be the look you're looking for. So just kind of go through and just bend it a little bit until you get it to be to get the results that you're looking for. And again, just want to kind of skip around and allow that dark to show through there. Now what you can do is if you get this, let's say you're getting ready to reload your brush and you had a little bit more paint on there than you thought and you blobbed it. What you want to do, because you've got that color on there already, in fact, here, I'll just do that. I'm going to reload my brush. And let's say you went like that and it's like, oh my God, that's way too thick. Well, if it's wet, you can just wipe it off. But I'm going to let that set just so you can see on a worst case scenario what would happen here. So I look at it like, oh my God, I made a mistake. Just don't worry about it because you still got the color on your brush. Just go ahead and finish what you're doing. And I'll show you how easy that is to fix. And this really, the quick fix for that is going to be true whether you're doing the ground, whether you're doing a pine tree, whether you're doing whatever. It's the same cure will fix that. So just kind of work around that and just pretend like it didn't happen. Don't even worry about it. Now you could fix it right away if you wanted to, but then you'd have to clean out your brush, get the color that you'd need to fix it, clean out your brush, go back to this color. This just kind of saves a step since you've already got this color on your brush. And just continue to work that down. Then I'm going to reload, and then I'm going to start over on this side because, again, I've got really the color on my brush already. So, and I'm going to start back here. You just need a little bit of pressure because, remember, that's further back, so you don't need a whole lot of detail to it. Just work that down. But you'll see how we went right up underneath the cabin, how that sets that cabin down and doesn't kind of look like it's floating. Do the same thing here with this. See by just putting that right up underneath that tree, how that kind of settles that right down in there. Keep it off my rock. And then you definitely want to make sure you get up underneath the bottom edge of all your rocks here. And you can see by putting some of those on that go up on the bottom edge of your rock, how it pushes that rock back and then sets it down into. So again, just little things that you can do like that that really will make a difference in your painting. I had a rock there, but decided that's not where I want a rock, so I'm just going to cover it up. Because I believe, if I'm right, there's a broken off tree, there's a stump there, and the rest of the tree comes laying down there, so that rock was going to get in the way. I'm just going to go down and reload. And right back up. Remember, every time you reload, you don't want to hit it very hard because you've got a lot more paint on your brush at that point. So you want to go up and just lightly tap it. Again, if you hit it too hard to begin with, you're going to schmutz it like you did over there. But see how by going up underneath the bottom edge of those rocks, how it sets those rocks right down in the grasses? I'm going to reload maybe one more time, and hopefully that'll be enough to finish this section out. But notice how I'm leaving darks in there. That's what makes that look like there's some thickness to it. Then just kind of look over it, and if there's any areas that you feel you got to hit again, I think it's going to be all right. I'm going to clean this out. Then I'm going to go back and fix that area. Now, sometimes if you get lucky, when you go back to fix a mistake like that, you just have to hit it a couple times and you're done with it. But sometimes, if you end up covering too much of it with dark, you're going to have to go back and re-highlight it. So that's the very worst that can happen. But that's not that bad. So you're going to, and how you fix this is that, again, no matter what the object is, you want to go back to what the undercolor painting was originally for that area. This was blue and green. So I'm just getting blue and green on my fan brush. And now what I do is I do the exact same technique I did as I put the highlights on, except I'm going to put darks here. So instead of putting light on dark, in this area we're going to put dark on light. And we just need to thin that out so it's not so thick and bulky. So just come in really lightly. And you can just thin that out and it looks just like the rest. But again, if you hit that too hard and now it became really dark, now you're done with this color, clean it out, go back to your highlight color, and you can just lightly go back over that. So you really, it's really difficult to make a mistake here. So, but that how you fix that, that's true with everything. I mean, if we were going to put, when we put the highlights on here, let's say I put it on and it's too thick with bright, just finish your highlighting, then go back and darken that area up, and you'll see that it settles right back down. And that will work 100% of the time. I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some highlights in our pine trees that are the closer ones. So we're going to do those 4 and then that one, our 5th one. So what we're going to use with that is we're going to use some yellow and some green. Now what you want to do with this to load this is that once you got your color blended, is that you want to tap your brush, and I'm using the medium flat bristle brush, just tap your brush right into that color. And what this does 2 things. It gives you an even distribution of paint on the end of your bristles, so that way you don't have maybe a thicker glob on one corner than the other, and as you go up and hit, there goes. So this will ensure that you have an even distribution. Plus, you'll notice that it opens the bristles up a little bit. You want this not a chiseled edge at all. And then we're going to go right up to the canvas. Remember that our light's going to come in from the right-hand side. So as you do this, you want to, I always show this in class because when you say like you want to use a lot less pressure, you want to do it really light. It's hard to interpret, whoa, what's light? So one of the things I do to help with that is that as you go up there, you want to just kind of tap this, and it's kind of like, and my students who are watching will remember because they're always ripping on me about that. It's just really light. And again, just like everything we highlight, you don't want to cover up all your dark. That dark's got to show through there. So we're going to stay on the right-hand side, basically. I'm going up and just lightly tapping. Of course, I'm not going to make that sound, but you can make it at home. And these are going to be the branches that the light's catching on. Now, one of the things about pine trees that is so easy to do, and I'll do it on this next one so you can see, is that as you're bringing your highlights back towards the center of the tree, the logic would say, okay, if I bring them back about halfway, that should be about right. And that's really not wrong to think that way. But what can happen, and I'll show you with this next tree, and I see this happen all the time, and it's really easy to do, but as soon as you do it, you'll notice that something is wrong. So I'm going to do it on this tree here. Is again, light touches, bouncing around, but I'm just going to bring my highlights back to the halfway point of the tree. And again, if you're thinking that way, that's probably not too far from being pretty accurate. But what will happen, and hopefully the camera can pick this up, is that I brought my highlights all back to the same part. And if you look real close, you can see now I've created a visual line. And that's what you don't want to do. Your eye is always attracted to light colors, and it's always attracted to patterns. And what makes it doubly worse is that if you have a light pattern, now you got the double whammy. So what you don't want to do is to create a visual line like that. So to combat that, what you do is you're highlighting is sometimes you don't bring it to halfway, other times you bring it back halfway. So to change this up, all I do is I start bringing highlights back once in a while past halfway. And that visually will break up that straight edge that I had caused. And it's really easy to do with pine trees. I mean, it seriously is. But if you offset them like that, then you get that feeling that there's actually branches that are sticking towards us, the viewer, that are catching light. So I'm just going to go down and reload the brush. Again, just once you got your color, just tap it in like that. Come up to the canvas. Again, light touches. And keep your brush moving. And don't cover up all your dark. Come back past halfway sometimes. Sometimes you don't go to halfway. But just keep that brush moving. I'm going to reload and we'll get that last one done. But you can see how important it is having those darks in it. It really helps to make that look three-dimensionalized because it looks like there's some depth to it. There's some shadows and things that are going on in there. And that's, again, all accomplished by just not overdoing it. All right, now we got to get this one over here. Again, get your color, tap your brush so it opens up a little bit. Light touches. Don't cover up all your dark. Should be enough for that. All right, let's go ahead and clean out our brush on that one. I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to underpaint that stump that I talked about earlier when the tree that has fallen is kind of broken off. And we had another dead one that came up this way. Let's go ahead and put those in now so those can be drying. And then after we got those blocked in, we'll go back and start working on our cabin. So I'm going to get the small flat bristle brush. And I'm going to go into some blue and some brown. And again, when you're doing this, the blue is there to darken the brown up. You can take this to whatever degree of dark you want. If you recall from other shows, I've talked about the color black, how I never use black out of a tube, is I always like to make my own black. And if you want it really dark, you just keep adding more and more blue to it, and you'll see that that gets really dark. So you can get this to whatever you want. I think I got this to about like a chocolate brown. So I'm going to put in the stump. And again, we'll put highlights and things on this. Just kind of make it look like it's kind of broken off. It's got some irregular shapes to it. I'm just going to reload it, be right back. Again, we'll kind of redefine that with some highlights. And then the tree that snapped off, that rascal's actually laying right over this way. And later on, we'll put some highlights and stuff on this, and then we'll actually go back with our grasses. So we go up over the edge of that like we did our rock, so it looks like that's sitting down. Because right now it looks like it's kind of floating a little bit. But those are all things we'll do next week when we kind of finalize everything up. So that'll be the part that's broken off from there. I'm going to reload, and then we're going to put a pine tree over here that's kind of dead. And he's going to kind of go like this and sit right down in this area there. And again, we'll put some highlights on this probably next week too. I'm going to reload. And we're just going to get some branches that are sticking off. Again, we'll identify those a little bit more next week. With trees, I know it sounds elementary, but you always want to make sure the base of your tree is wider than the top of the tree, and that it's wide enough that when you look at it, if you feel like it could support the tree that you have above that. And again, when we go back with highlighting our grasses, we'll pull some grass up on the bottom of that so it looks like that's sitting down in the grass. Go ahead and clean out your brush. Before I forget, I'm going to get a little bit of blue, and where we have in that waterfall, we talked last week, it's going to be right in there. I want to darken this, put a little bit blue in here and darken that up. So when we start putting the highlights in there, it's got a little bit of shadow underneath there, and this will help give that waterfall a little bit of depth and dimension too. So just needs to be a little bit darker. You can just smudge out the sides with your finger just so it's a little bit darker. That's all you really need. Now we're going to go back and work on that cabin. Remember again that our light's coming in from the right hand side. So the light's going to catch this outer edge of the roof, and it's going to catch here. This side of the cabin is going to get highlighted. This is going to be the shadow side. So we're going to start with our highlights first. So this is going to be some white and a little bit of brown, and you can actually, if you still have some of the brown left, you can use that brown that we just used for those trees. You don't have to make up a new batch. And we're going to come up, and you always want to highlight things as they are. So trees, obviously, you want to highlight vertically. Boards on your cabin, if you're making it where they're vertical, you want to make your strokes that way, because remember that when you're highlighting things, that helps indicate the shape of those. And let me get a little bit more brown. That's kind of a little light color. I'm going to get a little darker. All right, let's see how this works. There we go. And you just want to come up and just make a series of vertical strokes. And if you put this on, you can leave it so you can see a little bit of dark, so maybe it looks like the indication of some space between boards and things like that. Now remember that back here is going to be a shed, so I'm only going to bring this color back a little bit more, right about to there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up my brush, and to get that look that this shed kind of sits back in, where it's maybe back and behind the cabin, is I'm getting a darker color, which is again blue and brown, but I'm making this darker. And you want to get your brush to a chiseled edge. And right here at the corner, you just want to make a little bit of an indentation there. And that helps to push that part back. Now you can go back to highlighting. And I'm going to bring it right about to that corner there. I'm going to make it a little bit more light than that. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to work, well, since we got this on there, let's do this. Let's highlight that front roof line. So I've just grabbed some white, a little bit of brown, and I'm going to go right down that edge. It's going to catch the top of the porch, and it's actually going to catch, I know you can't see this very well, it's going to catch the front of that post. I may go back and brighten this up with the same color. It's going to catch the side of the roof line, and then because that shed gets pushed back, you don't want to bring that all the way down. This gets offset a little bit, like that. And I'm going to go through and just maybe brighten this up a little bit. Again, just really light vertical strokes. All right. Now what I'm going to do, and the reason I do light and then I do the shadow color is because the shadow color is always the color that you've been using plus blue. So instead of doing the shadow first, where you've got to make up, the basic color that we did plus blue, you can clean out your brush, then make a light color. What I do is I make the highlight first, then you just simply add blue to it, then you've got your shadow, and you're working out of the same batch. The thing with blue, when you add this, is that you need to add more blue to it than what you imagine. And this should come up to be like a blue battleship gray color. And I'm going to put this on the back side. Again, doing some vertical strokes. Just like that. And then on the roof, this is going to be darker, remember, because the light's coming from the opposite side. Just work that down and see I'm following the angle of the roof. And then I'm going to go through with some dark color, and I'm going to end up separating those two roof lines out because they're two different buildings. This is maybe added on later. Good. We'll clean out our brush. With that, we're going to go back and make some dark again, but we're going to end up, I'm just using this so it's easier to blend this color together with this brush. You just want a dark color, then you can clean that out. And then we're going to go to our liner brush so we can put in some of the details. Like we'll put in some of the, maybe some windows that are facing out. So you want to get your brush wet, obviously. And then with that water, you want to incorporate that into the paint. Remember, with a liner brush, you've got to thin your paint down in order for that brush to work effectively. So once that paint's thin, you want to get your brush, roll it in there, and then pull it out. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put that roof line that I talked about, that's going to go right across here. So it separates one roof from the other. We'll put like maybe a little window that's up here. And we'll put a couple here. This is just a liner brush and with some blue and brown. You just want a dark color. Then I'm going to go right underneath the eaves here, so that kind of helps to push those back. And maybe we'll just put a little door here to that shed. And you don't have to do too much. Just wipe my door out. There. Again, just a rustic little cabin. I'm going to put a little bit of a chimney on this. I'm going to go back to my dark. I'll be right back up so you can see it against the trees in the back. There. And when that dries, we'll put a little bit of smoke coming out of there so it looks like something's going on in there. Then we can clean out our liner brush. And while that's drying, we're going to go back to our small flat bristle brush, and then we can start working on some of the highlights in our rocks. Highlighting for rocks, make this to be whatever color you want this to be. Obviously, there needs to be some white in it and some brown. If you make a color that's way too bright for you, if you add just a touch of blue to it, that'll gray that up a little bit. But you can get away with anything. In fact, sometimes it's good to kind of change your highlights around. Remember, light's coming from the right, so you want to put your first strokes on the sunlit side, and then what you want to do is you want to go back and you want to disturb that inside of that stroke so you don't end up with a hard edge. And just kind of work this back, and just do it really light, and I'm just leaving the brush right on the canvas and just kind of mopping this back. In fact, another thing you can do, if it makes it easier, after you've done your highlight, wipe off some of your paint, then you can go in with your corner of your brush, and then you can work that back. And again, you just kind of go through, and you want to, your first stroke is to outline that outer edge. Then you want to get rid of that inside stroke so you don't look like there's a stripe of paint there. Just kind of work that back. We're going to have to pick up the rest of this next week, and this is exactly what we'll start with, is finishing highlighting all of our rocks. Then we can work in the water a little bit, and we'll highlight our trunks and our dead tree there. But see how by not covering up all your dark, you get that little look of some texture that's in there, and it's really important. And it's just by light pressure as you're working that back. And this is as far as we're going to get today. Thank you so much for watching. Send me or email me a photograph of when you're on vacation, a landscape, or it's down the road from where you live, or out back, or in your front yard. Send it to me, and we'll take a look at it. Maybe we can incorporate that into a painting. We'd love to see what you've got. Also, if you do any kind of painting yourself and you want some advice or you want some help with it, send me a picture of that. I'll be glad to help you through that, give you a little critique, give you some hits and tips and things that you can do to maybe enhance it. Remember that you can do this. I promise you can do this. This is not really difficult, but you got to get off the couch, grab some paint and some brushes, and give it a shot. You can do this. Anyone can paint. I'll see you next.